This is the Fujifilm X-S20 camera. If you had told me that Fujifilm's first ever vlogging-enabled camera would step ahead of the X-T5 with certain features, I would have thought the world had gone nuts. Well, here we are. Hi everyone, welcome to Pal to Tech. Today, Fujifilm launched the brand new X-S20, which is a follow-up to the popular X-S10 model. We are actually seeing a new change in how Fujifilm upgrades their cameras. Usually, both the processor and the sensor are of the same generation. For example, an X-T4 has an X-Trans 4 sensor with a 4th generation processor. The X-T5 got an X-Trans 5 sensor with a 5th generation processor and so forth. However, the new X-S20 got the latest 5th generation processor, but it instead has the older 26 megapixel X-Trans 4 sensor from the X-T4. I think Fujifilm made that decision for two reasons. First, to keep the costs down. With the X-S20, it is clear that Fujifilm is targeting a wide market of hybrid content creators. And second, by combining the most powerful camera processor with a previous generation 26 megapixel sensor and not the 40 megapixel, I think it actually allows for some benefits. Most notably, performance, faster autofocus, and subject tracking. First, a quick disclaimer. Fujifilm North America did loan me this X-S20 for just a few days to test out and examine before returning it back to them. The Fujifilm X-S20 camera is pre-production gear. In other words, it's not finalized yet. Okay, back to the studio. Fujifilm does not pay me to make these videos. They had no input into the content. They were not allowed to see this video until right now when it has been released for all of you. The X-S10 body will be priced at $1299. The camera body weighs 491 grams, and it's almost the same size as the X-S10, but it does weigh an additional 26 grams. Let me tell you, this camera feels very compact to me, even coming from an X-T5. The grip itself is deeper and larger than the X-S10. I love it, and it feels solid no matter what type of lens that you have attached to it. There's another good reason for having this extra large grip, and that is because the X-S20 needs that extra space because it now has the larger NP-W235 battery, similar to more recent camera models. So this battery, combined with the newer X processor, gives you more than double the amount of shots on a single charge compared to the X-S10. Up to 800 images on a single battery charge if you shoot in economy mode with LCD, or at a higher performance up to 530 in boost mode using the EVF. Like the X-S10, there is one SD card slot right near the battery slot, and the camera is now compatible with UHS-2 type SD cards. Looking at the top, the controls are in similar locations as the X-S10. A PASM dial, command dials, ISO and Q buttons, dedicated record button, and a little switch to pop up the included flash unit. The ISO and Q buttons are now closer together and slightly larger. Both the PASM dial and the top left dial are also larger diameter-wise. The settings you'll find on the PASM dial are just like the other PASM-enabled Fujifilm cameras, and the 4 custom settings work just like the XH2 lineup. There's also an auto mode and the new vlog setting that I'll talk about in a bit. The diopter and additional function button near the viewfinder stayed the same. Like the X-S10, it has a 0.62 times magnification, 2.6 million dots resolution, and a refresh rate of 100 frames per second. Similar upgrades were made to the back of the camera as well. The menu OK and DISP back buttons are larger and slightly closer together. The rounder AF on button protrudes out a bit more, and overall, I found them very easy to find and use. Like the X-S10, it has a fully articulating 3-inch LCD screen. The screen itself has an upgraded resolution of approximately 77% over the X-S10, and it's now 1.84 million dots. You can also attach an optional external cooling fan to the back of the camera as well, like the XH2S. The front of the camera is exactly the same as the X-S10. The left side of the camera has a hard door that opens up to contain both a micro HDMI port and a USB-C charging and data port. Above the door is an external microphone port with a little pop-out cover, and below the door is a little speaker for audio playback. On the right side, you have a headphone jack port. Yes, really you do. My X-T5 doesn't even have that, and we're stuck having to use these dumb dongles instead. And that's it for all of the ports on the camera. And I can see you thinking now, hey, Pal to Tech, it looks like there's no remote release port. Well, check this out. Inside the camera's audio settings, you can change the mic port into a remote release port right in the menu. That's a pretty cool feature. One additional spec that I would like to talk about is the improved wireless connection and Wi-Fi features. It is now fully enabled to use the new Fujifilm X app that I will talk about in a future video. Let's now get into burst rate, files, shutter, and some of the more upgraded performance features. The lowest native ISO on the X-S20 is 160, and you can go all the way up to 12,000 natively. You also get extended ISO of 80, 100, and 125 on the low end, with 25,600 and 51,200 on the high end. If you don't know the difference between native and extended ISO, you should. So be sure to check out my dedicated video on that very topic. Search for it on the channel. But not till we're done with this review. You have included both a mechanical and an electronic shutter. The mechanical shutter allows for up to 1/4000th of a second shutter speed. If you change it to electronic, you can shoot up to 1/32,000th of a second. You could also shoot with a combination of mechanical and electronic shutter. Like other Fujifilm cameras, you can shoot in both RAW, JPEG, or both. The highest quality and largest resolution is 3:2 large, which gives you 26 megapixels at 6240 by 4160, and for a single JPEG, the camera gives you about a 15 megabyte file size. You also get the choice of using an HEIF format instead of JPEG. And for RAW, you get uncompressed, lossless compressed, and compressed. As you can see, the file size difference between uncompressed RAW and lossless compressed RAW is significant. So, with these file sizes and how they handle the continuous shooting buffer on the X-S20, here's what you're looking at. In comparison with the X-S10, overall you have double the size of the memory in the X-S20 with UHS-2 compatibility. Shooting with a mechanical shutter, you can get a burst rate of up to 8 frames per second. With uncompressed RAW, that gives you 35 frames in the buffer. With compressed RAW and JPEG formats, the camera can handle over 1,000 frames in that burst mode. If you switch to electronic shutter, you can shoot up to 256 JPEG frames and 28 uncompressed RAW frames. And if you're willing to put up with a 1.25 times crop factor, you can shoot electronic shutter and get up to 30 frames per second burst rate. Doing that fills the buffer after 407 JPEGs or 28 uncompressed RAWs. Since the camera uses the exact same sensor as the X-T4, the resolution and image quality should pretty much be identical to that camera. For a deeper dive into those specifics, see my review of the X-T4 camera on the YouTube channel. The X-S20 has a built-in IBIS mechanism that allows for up to 7 stops of image stabilization. That is 1 additional stop over the previous X-S10 model. Interestingly, it looks like some new IBIS features have now been added. The menu now offers the ability to pick between shooting only, motion, continuous, or a combination of both. I didn't have time to test that out before I have to return this camera to Fujifilm, unfortunately, but perhaps maybe in a future video. The camera comes with all the latest film simulations, particularly those found on the X-T5. It also has similar image quality settings and adjustments. Not to mention a whole host of bracketed shooting modes, interval timers, HDR, panorama, and multiple exposure options. Let's talk now about autofocus. The X-S20 now has the same 5th generation X processor improved autofocus algorithm as the X-H2, X-H2S, and the X-T5. As of the date of this video, this camera has, I think, the most advanced autofocus of any Fujifilm X-T model that I have worked with. The biggest change is predictive autofocus for moving subjects, plus some new features for video that I'll cover in a bit. During my brief testing period, I noticed the predictive autofocus improvements right away. I've never nailed so many shots using face-eye auto-detect with subject movement. The X-S20 consistently nailed more shots than any Fujifilm camera that I've ever used. These new autofocus improvements are coming with a firmware update to at least the X-T5 and the X-H2. For a deeper dive into how the whole algorithm works, as well as the general autofocus features that are similar to the X-H5, X-H2, and X-H2S, please see my complete review of the X-T5, where I go into that in much more detail. Before we continue, I'd like to mention a word about the sponsor of today's video, FlexiSpot, and to tell you all about their FlexiSpot Brand Day deals that are going on right now. FlexiSpot makes all kinds of standing desks and furniture. I've been using the Pro Plus standing desk every day for several years now. Being able to stand up while I'm working really does raise my energy level, and I do notice that I'm more productive with my video and photo editing. I've also been using a standing desk as a product photography table. It's great because it's sturdy and it allows me to move up and down if I quickly want to reframe a shot. It's also lightweight, so I can move the desk around if I need to. The desk is very easy to assemble, which can be done in about 30 minutes. It comes in a number of colors, materials, and sizes. Here's the thing about standing desks. You don't always want to be standing. You want the flexibility of being able to move it from a sitting position to a standing position in seconds. Everything is controlled by the electronic keypad. Even at full height, the desk is solid and has very minimal wobbling. If you've been on the fence about getting a standing desk, then there is no better time than now. FlexiSpot's May Brand Day is one of their biggest discount events of the year, and you can get up to 60% off selected furniture. I will leave links down below where you can go check them out. And in the meantime, I want to thank FlexiSpot for supporting today's video, as well as sponsoring the channel. But let's talk about a few new autofocus features included in the X-S20 that aren't currently available on any other Fujifilm camera. The camera now has both insect and drone detection. I'm not kidding. I don't know how many drones I'm going to be shooting, but honestly, I cannot wait to try out insect detection and see how that performs. There's also a new auto subject scene mode that's set by putting the PASM dial into auto. When you choose that, you do not have to worry about selecting bird, animal, or whatever, as the camera will automatically figure out what type of subject you're shooting. Not only that, but it also allows you to choose auto for your film simulation as well. When you do this, it will apply what it thinks is the best film sim for the type of scene that you're trying to shoot. I'll tell you something. Soon enough, I'm just going to go head to bed, and you know what? The camera will just handle the entire photographic process for me. Let's talk now about upgrades to video in the X-S20. The camera can now shoot internally at 6.2K 30p, 3.2 open gate in 422 10-bit. It also handles DCI 4K at 60p. The bit rate has been increased to 360 megabits per second. Rolling shutter is at 1/60th of a second. Brand new to any Fujifilm camera is the long play mode for up to 1080 60p video that gives you more shooting time with a slight reduction in quality. I also happen to notice that Fujifilm didn't include the 4K HQ mode. That was the 6.2 downsampled to 4K in the Fujifilm X-T5 camera. Perhaps this was done because of the 26 megapixel sensor. I'm not sure. You can shoot in 12-stop f-log at ISO 640 as well as 13-stop f-log 2 at ISO 1250. That's an increase of 1 stop over the X-S10. You also get HDMI raw output at 12-bit in both 6.2 60p in 3:2 aspect ratio or 5.2 30p at a 16:9 aspect ratio. If you shoot at maximum resolution of 6K 30p in 77-degree Fahrenheit weather, you can get up to 36 minutes record time before the camera overheats. For 4K 30p, you get up to 75 minutes. This can be extended with an optional cooling fan. The camera also brings many of the same kinds of video menu improvement and other features that are found on the X-T5 and the X-H2 lineup as well. I will leave a link to a full spec listing in the description down below this video, or you can also see my X-T5 review where I go over all the new video features. Now we come to what I consider to be the most interesting part of the camera, the new vlog mode on the PASM dial and all its new features. The dial doesn't just spell VLOG vlog, but it actually spells out a whole new direction and market segment that Fujifilm is headed after. Let's take a look now at the two main unique video features found on the X-S10 camera. When you put the PASM dial into vlog mode and then tap the vlog icon here on the screen, you get a brand new touchscreen menu that should be the gold standard for how Fujifilm cameras do touchscreen. Honestly, I've never liked Fuji touchscreens and I always disable mine, but the X-S20 is the first Fujifilm camera that I've actually found the touchscreen to be helpful and practical. The icons on the vlogging menu are large, and they're easy to manipulate on the screen, as well as being very responsive. I've used the Sony ZV-1 many times, and while I like this camera also, I don't like the Sony buttons nor the menu usability. In fact, you need an electron microscope to see these icons, and you need fingers the size of toothpicks to touch one of them without accidentally pressing the other one. On the X-S20, you get 6 options with the vlogging touch menu. The 2 main vlogging features are product priority mode and background defocus mode. You can also access these settings in the main camera video menu, as well as assign a custom button to control them. Let's look at background defocus mode. But before I go any further, let me say that we are not talking about that cheap portrait software blurred background look that you get from smartphones. The background blur here is the real thing, meaning that it changes part of the exposure triangle settings so that it can manipulate the aperture to achieve better subject isolation. Because it's not software-based, it is important to note that how much subject isolation you get all depends on your lens. Here I'm shooting with the 10 to 24mm lens that only has a maximum aperture of f4. Because this lens is not very wide open, when I put the camera into background defocus mode, it doesn't make that much difference. However, when I switch out lenses to a faster lens with a larger aperture, such as this 18 to 55 f2.8, you can see here how that affected the entire background. See that? Product priority mode is even more impressive. It uses the camera's subject detection algorithm to allow subjects to appear in focus not only when held in front of the face, okay, but also positioned to the left or positioned to the right. I am doing that all the time on this channel, and the only way I can get something in focus with the X-T3 that I'm shooting on is to hold the subject right in the center there. Boom, see that? The minute I take it away, if I put it right here, you're not going to be able to see it. It's going to be blurry. But look at how the X-S20 camera never loses focus of the item that I'm holding. Here it is both with and without product priority mode turned on. Have a look at that. This is a great feature for video content creators. There's another content creation feature that is not found on the X-T5, and one that I was surprised but pleased to see added. The X-S20 now supports connecting directly to a PC as a webcam, but without the hassle of having to install the Fujifilm X webcam software. It also directly outputs video to the computer up to 4K 60p without needing to purchase a separate capture card. So, who is this camera for? Well, anyone who loves the X-S10 but wants a better autofocus, double the battery life, upgraded video features, better grip, improved IBIS, and a great vlogging capability, then this is definitely the camera for you. If you want a minimum of hassle in, shooting yourself, right, or quick on-the-go video setup, then this is the camera for you. Is the X-S20 perfect? No, it does have some ergonomic issues for my workflow. For example, I could not assign ISO to the front command dial like I could with the X-T5. And for me, being able to press in on the front of the command dial to quickly change ISO settings, how I hold the camera, is so helpful and convenient. The HDMI port is on the left side of the camera, and the screen also flips out to the left. And you want to attach either an HDMI cable or a USB cord for constant power. Have a look at what ends up happening here. The cord blocks out the middle portion of the screen that's flipping around facing you, and you can't just adjust it or move it out of the way. Ergonomic points aside, there is a lot to love in this camera. A heck of a lot. And honestly, if I had a budget for a second run-and-gun style camera for what I do here on this channel, the X-S20 would be the one I would get in a heartbeat. One last thing I want to mention, and that is I only had this camera for a very short period of time, and there were many tests that I did not have the time to fully work on, such as connecting it to the new Fujifilm app, more low light testing, and a more detailed look at autofocus performance. So take that for what it's worth. I've tried today to give you my first impressions as both a Fuji X-T shooter as well as a video content creator. I am headed to the post office now to return the camera. However, I really want to say, before I do, a special thank you to the folks at Fujifilm North America for trusting me enough to send an unreleased camera so that I can get an early look at it. And for the rest of you, thank you so much for watching, and I hope you found the video helpful or at least entertaining. And if you did, be sure to give it the like and subscribe. I will see you again in a new video very soon. Take care.